Welcome back to Roll to Hit Gaming's 50 Favorite Games 2019 edition.
We're going through 10 to 1.
You followed this nonsense so far. We're glad to have you with this one. This is not games that we're telling you are the 50 greatest games in the world. We're not that presumptuous. But these are our 50 favorite games that we recommend you try if you haven't, or try again if you have. For Roll to Hit Gaming, I'm Chip.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Lucas. And I'll go ahead and get us started with one that I avoided for years. And then a couple years ago at BGG Con, one of you idiots picked it up off the library and put it on the table. And that's Five Tribes.
Oh, yeah, man, yeah. Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I avoided it for years because I didn't think I'd see it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but I did. It's a really neat little Moncala deal. You start with all the different colors of meeples out there. You pick the group up, move them along, and where you drop it, you take some, and then you perform an action according to whichever ones you took. It's a really neat little puzzle deal. You're trying to get gens, and they give you special powers and put together some sets to get victory points. Really, really neat puzzly type game that fortunately I did see and I loved, and that's why it makes it to number 10.
It's really pretty, and I love the Jin cards. The art on it's fantastic. It's a good game.
Yeah, it is. We'll talk about some more later.
Well, for my number 10, let me find it. Here we go. My number 10 is, there's this game that I've been wanting to play for a while, but I couldn't get anyone to play it with me because they said it was broken. So they made a new version of it, and we played that one, and I loved it, and that's Betrayal at Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
This is a game where it's basically a dungeon crawl, but you're going through it, and as the game progresses, you open up these rooms and things happen, and it's really cool because you never know it's more than just what's around the next corner is a door. There's a story that goes with it. So I really enjoyed that one, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, the reason it's broken is because you come to a point where you trigger the haunt, right? And then, at that point, you split up and somebody may become a traitor or whatnot. The problem is you can hit that sometimes, and whatever triggers the end of the game from that point has already happened. Or
You're saying
But
that
that's
the first edition
the predecessor.
has that problem.
I've heard that Betrayal at Baldur's Gate could have it too. We've been very fortunate and not seen it, but that's the reason it's broken. But like I said, we've been very fortunate, and I agree with it. The games that we've played have been incredibly fun. So I think you just take that dud, maybe that happens every once in a while, and go with it,
Yeah. I enjoyed this game as well. We'll talk about it some more later.
Oh.
Goodness gracious.
When you live with people and interact with them for so long, sometimes you start looking like them, acting like them, talking like them. So, yes, you have the same taste. My number 10 is going to be a crossover already from previous lists. That's going to be the new competitive war game by Games Workshop, Warhammer Underworlds.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
So this game came on strong for me, and I just fell in love with it. I think because for me with Games Workshop, I always gravitate toward their smaller miniature count games, and so this one you're just buying a warband of maybe 3 to 7 or 8 miniatures. And so you got less to paint. You can get them painted quickly, get them on the board, and it's a relatively portable game. Added to that, I've always liked deck building card style games, and so they incorporate that into this game. And so it really hits on a lot of levels for me. Has the fantasy theme. I like exploring the different types of war bands. They all have relatively different powers, different specialties that they do. And then seeing the strategy and sort of almost a Magic the Gathering style meta sort of emerge itself out of your play group, right? So some people may start having success with the dwarf faction, and now we have to figure out which counters to that.
Yeah, the build of the week type thing.
And the evolution of that. So really, really cool, fast to get into. And, it's one of those where you can get as far into it as you want. You can get every set so you have the full set of cards. Or, if you're more casual, you can just pick up the couple of war bands that you want to play with and just play with that. But, Warhammer Underworlds and started with Shadespire. Now it's Night Haunt.
Yes,
but
Night Haunt.
it's under the Underworld banner. So really enjoy that.
It's great, especially like with Warhammer. If you're familiar with the races within, they pretty much have a warband for every race represented within.
They're working on putting more,
and they're still putting more out, and they're still supporting it, and that's awesome.
I've been. You've listed as we've gone through this journey a lot of games that I thought would be in this segment, so I've really been trying to figure out what your top 10 is going to be. And for a time, I thought you might have actually put this one because you kept saying to me, "Man, I talk about it all the time," and he certainly talks about this one all the time. Really cool game, and that's going to be our number 10.
So for my number 9, this is a game that I've spoke about before because I really love Greek mythology, and that's Elysium. So
wow.
I love Elysium. Okay, so this is what you're doing. You have all these Greek gods, and you're playing them out, and you're collecting cards by doing the strange pillar system. It's a color coordination type thing. But as you're gaining these cards and you're using these gods with their special powers, eventually you're trying to get them into Elysium for your victory points. But as soon as you put the gods down there to create their legend, you lose their special power. So it's all about timing, and I really like that puzzle, and it's in a mythology that I love. So Elysium is my number 9.
Very cool.
I think I've played this one with you guys.
No, not yet. You need to.
Yeah. Cool. So my number 9 is a crossover, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. I told you we would talk about it. I really like it. I mean, I'm a Dungeons and Dragons nerd anyway, so the Betrayal of the House on the Hill really never caught me. But adding the D&D theme, I think, is what inspired me to want to play it. And I have heard the stuff about there were a lot of fixes. One of the things I had heard about previous edition was that you could get trapped in the basement and you had no way to get out. And if I remember when we played, Baldur's Gate takes that out, right? So you can go into the sewers or whatever it's called, the labyrinth or whatever, but there's always a way to get back up. And so I guess that was one of the fixes that they put in for it. But I do like the idea of it comes with a smorgasbord of different haunts and things that can happen, which is great for replayability. The one, I guess, critique I would give it is a caution that you do need a cohesive play group to really have a good experience, right? Because, and sometimes it's like you said, when the haunt or the traitor is revealed, that's kind of a random thing, right? So, sometimes if you have a player at the table who maybe doesn't really want to take the center stage or doesn't really do well kind of with rules on their own, that could be sort of a risk, right? That, if they get selected for it, then,
they may struggle a little bit.
They may struggle a little bit with it. But if you've got, a group of ne'er-do-wells like we do, it's pretty well you're all right. Whoever gets it, you just take a few minutes and let them go read what the nefarious things they need to do is and come back to that table. But I really enjoyed playing it, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate.
Well, I agree with you.
All right, my number 9 is going to be my epic sci-fi space 4X game of choice.
Zaya, Legend of a Drift System.
That is so totally not it. You can see previous videos anytime I've ever talked about it to explain why that ain't it.
I just don't understand.
Mine is going to be Eclipse.
Okay.
I know some people don't like this, but they took TI3 and not the property, but the kind of game it is, and made it a Euro game, and that works for me. It comes in at a shorter clip, but delivers the same kind of 4X experience. I really enjoy it. There's actually a second edition coming out, I think sometime this year, that I'm really excited about, and that's going to be my number 9, Eclipse.
Definitely need to get that one back to the table. We haven't played that in a while. I know I enjoy it, and I'd like to try it again.
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy Eclipse. To me, so, it's been talked to death, the differences with it and TI.
Sure.
TI3, TI4.
Yeah, they're not the same game at all, right? Yeah.
No. And all 4X sci-fi games, right? But here's something that I haven't heard mentioned, and I'll put it in. So to me, Eclipse and Twilight Imperium, if I'm comparing them, Eclipse has this, I don't know what the right word is, like more refined airs to it, right? A more refined sensibility of exploring the galaxy and taking over, right? Whereas Twilight Imperium is just like dirty, down and dirty, right? You get mean and go attack and conquer the galaxy. Whereas like Eclipse, you're like,
you'll have tea while you're doing
it. Yeah, that's how I kind of feel. Like if the Federation had turned bad,
right,
and decided to become an Imperium, right, and just conquer the galaxy, they would do it, I think, in a more refined,
in a classy,
in an Eclipse style way, right? It's like, I'm taking you over, but you know, we all are still friends after the domination. So that's how it feels to me, and I really do enjoy it as well.
Pinkies up.
Yes. Coming in at number 8 is a new game to my list this year, and it could be the newest game I played right before making our list.
Okay.
It is Architects of the West Kingdoms. This game just really hit it for me. I like the whole flavor of it anyway, the worker placement and the workers as you add them to a location, giving you bonuses to getting your stuff. Essentially, you are an architect hired by the kingdom to build some grand cathedral, and so you're using your workers to affect that. But what's interesting to me is, as I said, you're putting your workers out, and the denser you put a population into an area, the more benefit you get from it. But the way to get your guys back out is to essentially to get them arrested for some reason. And I guess maybe it's because they're exploiting that location too much, or graft and corruption is taking
I do not know the thematic explanation.
I don't either, but it's an interesting way to move them off the board and then you bring them back, because you need this constant flow of your workers, and you can't just, like in other worker placement games, sometimes you either just draw them back or you can take an action to draw them back. You can't do that in this game. You have to get them arrested and bring them back in. A lot going on the board, many different kind of strategies to go after, and I just really liked it. And plus, some people may disagree, but I kind of like the art.
I do too.
It's a fun kind of cartoony, medievally artwork, and something just clicks with it for me. So I dig it. Architects of the West Kingdoms.
I kind of what I like is the economy of reputation.
Yeah.
Right, because if you're highly reputable, then you go up this particular track. But if you're the scum of the earth,
right,
that's okay too, because then you can get stuff off the black market, and you can get shady people to help you out. It's kind of cool that you can go in either direction.
Yeah, it is. We talked about, not on these lists because it didn't make anybody's list, but we had bought a game last year, Rise to Nobility, and I think what Architects is what we thought that game was going to be. So if you were disappointed in Rise to Nobility like we were, check out Architects of the West Kingdom. As you've seen, it's a 3-way crossover for us, and it's a great little game. My number 8, this is one that is kind of a spinoff or a sequel or in the world of, which is weird because it'd be Earth, but of the Manhattan Project, and that is Energy Empire.
Okay.
I never played Manhattan Project. To be honest, the theme really doesn't appeal to me, but for whatever reason, I picked this one up, and I really, really dig it. Basically, your energy that you're generating to do your actions and such is through dice based on the type of energy it is. It's a different dice, right? So, coal will give you energy, but it's also going to give you a ton of pollution, and you've got a little player board that you're adding pollution to that's going to cost you points at the end of the game for every space that's covered up with pollution, and you can get cleaner energies that'll give you, maybe not as much energy, but not as much chance of pollution and various things. You work through it. And then other than that, it's a worker placement engine building game. And it's one of these where I go out and I buy these various equipment or locations or whatever, and they go into my tableau, and that's areas for me to place my workers, right? So it's it's powers that I'm going to have all my own. The whole thing works together really well into a package that really engages me, and it does it in 90 minutes, and that is just great. So my number 8 is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
And the fact that you get to play like a country. You are representing a nation and this global empire of energy. I really like that one too.
What you get?
Okay, so my number 8 is not new to the list, but it is because we played the newest version of it, and that is History of the World. History of the World, I know it. History of the World is one that we play every first of the year. That's our group tradition. And this year we got the new version of it, and with its updated pieces and also its updated gameplay. We took a look at it, and we did kind of use the older rules with the newer look.
Well, we used a variant
right
in the new rules that was like what we used to play.
But the gameplay is still fantastic, and now it looks 10 times better. Just going through, the really cool thing about History of the World is you're given, in every epoch, you're given a nation to expand upon. But on the next epoch, you may have started as, I don't know, Japan, China, wherever, but the next epoch you may be over here in Syria. So then you're starting from scratch and expanding from there. And it's just really cool because you're not stuck with one nation throughout the entire game. Very cool game. Building monuments. It's just awesome. You should give it a try. History of the World.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can still delve into the new rules versus the old rules and stuff. One thing that to me was a vast improvement is and I'm not saying getting rid of chits is a good thing, but the way that the old History of the World had the chits, they were double-sided. You had like Epoch 1 chits on one side and Epoch 3 on the other, and then some had 2s and 5s, 7s and 4s, and it was maddening when you're getting ready to start your turn to go find, and you're looking on both sides to find the right ones. They replaced that with just a little globe sort of token, miniature, and I don't want to call it miniature, but
it's a pawn.
A pawn, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And your current empire is standing up, and your previous empires, you just lay them over so that you know, because in the game you're going to score on your current empire and previous empires that are still remaining on the board. So some past empires can give you some more points. So you just lay them over. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That's wonderful. So, what a great game.
On to number 7. And we're back. My number 7 brings Eric Lang back onto my list. It's been a while since we've talked about him on these, and that's going to be... No, unfortunately not. That's going to be the Godfather, Corleone's Empire. Based on the theme and the designer, I expected to like this one, even though I knew it probably had some kind of take that in it. And I absolutely loved it, and the take that doesn't bother me in this one for whatever reason. But basically, you're representing one of the families in the Godfather trying to gain influence, complete missions for the Godfather to bank cash, and whoever has the most at the end of the game wins. It is not Godfather themed at all, but it's mobster themed, and that's good enough for me. So I really enjoy it. Obviously, it's at my 7, The Godfather, Corleone's Empire.
And we played this with a large player count, and we still had, it wasn't taxing because of the more player count. Yes, the board filled up more, but it's still an influence. It's still a majority that takes control. So even with higher player counts, this is a great game.
Yeah, it's not like you're not playing Don Corleone, right? But you are playing mobsters, I guess, in that world.
Capos. Whatever.
I don't particularly enjoy the game very much just because of at higher player counts I don't. Maybe at less. The board gets really, really tight. I mean, I'll give Eric Lang his props. He's a great designer. And you can also see his evolution of game design in this game. There's a lot of elements that you can tell this is all kind of a culmination of what he did before up to that point. I'm simpler. I like Godfather: A New Dawn, the dice game.
That didn't make the list.
And Trains and Stations is still a title by Eric Lang that is greatly overlooked.
Since you're hell-bent on us talking about it, I didn't like that game at all because of the way you could just wipe somebody out. I hated it. So, yeah, that one's definitely not going to make the list.
Probably Lang's best. It's a gem. So, yeah, that's all I have to really say about Godfather.
Well, for my number 7, this is one that's already been mentioned. I just happen to like it more, and that is Firefly, the board game. Love this game. Not only do I love the IP, I love the Firefly universe. I love the TV series, the movies, all that. But the fact that it's such a big, expansive pick up and delivery with a little bit on the side game. This is so awesome. You have a mission at the beginning of the game, and be it, pay off your ship or do a scavenger hunt, and you're going across this massive expanse of space, hitting all these planets, hitting all these marketplaces, building up your crew with either, naughty or nice. It's just so much fun living in that universe. No, you're not playing Mal or, any of the other characters. You're not Wash, but you're in that universe and you get to be like you have your own crew. It's awesome. Love this game. Firefly, the board game.
And you can hire all of the characters from the different places. Yeah, it's such a cool game. And it's one of those where when I bought the original set, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go get the expansions too, because I just felt like, I would enjoy it. And I did. So, yeah, really cool game. He hasn't played it yet.
He needs to play it.
So number 7, if Architects of the West Kingdom was number 8, this might as well be just the tie for 7 and 8. And it just comes down to theme, I guess. This is Stone Age. So to me...
And complexity.
Right? Yeah, complexity. Yeah. These games are just really dead even with me. And I think I like Stone Age a little bit more because it's a little bit more streamlined. Can play a little bit faster. But man, I'll take either one of them, in the drop of a hat. Essentially, again, you're placing, it's worker placement around it's the Stone Age theme, your cavemen, and trying to score points. But it just, I don't know. Like I said, it just, to me, between theme and streamlining, it eked out the little bit of win, I guess, for me. So Stone Age is my game number 7.
I think it's considered one of those evergreens, or at least gateway for worker placement. It is very simple. I mean, it's going out and getting, wood, food, whatever you need, getting some tools to help you out. That if there is, the complexity is not there, what you'll find in other worker placement games that have come since then. So,
but it's a solid foundation, right? It is. So to teach somebody worker placement, it's a game to go to, right? I wouldn't start them out on the more complex games. It would be much easier to start them here and kind of graduate them.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's a prime example of why we call this our favorite games, right? Because, some of these games just don't get enough love. And I'm with Chip on this one. I think Stone Age deserves it. There was just an anniversary edition that came out. It gets knocked on by some, hardcore Euro players because it has dice. Yeah. And I've never understood that, but that could because I came from dice games, But it's got that nifty, and I don't know who the designer is. I apologize. It'll be at the bottom of the screen here. It's got that nifty Feldian way to mitigate the dice, in getting those tools right. And I really enjoy it when you can include dice and that, because if I don't want to be completely relying on what the dice roll, I can make an effort so that I can modify my dice rolls. I really like that one too.
Those are our number 7s.
So for my number 6, this was a game that I saw people talking about it on the Hotness. And so, cool name, jumped in on it, saw just how it looked, and had to have it. And that's Scythe.
So, before we started, I said, I don't know why I put this on my list, this little box game. My number 6 is Scythe.
Very nice.
Yes.
Little box.
Huge.
I was trying to throw you off the shin.
Oh, okay.
He did. So with Scythe, love this game. It's a very, dystopian look at an alternate history, maybe. But you have these mechs, and it's all about area, controlling area, getting resources, and there's all these different ways to gain your stars or gain your victory points. And the first 1 to 10 wins the game. And all these different factions, all these different mechs, that you use vehicles that you use to travel with, they're all different. They all have a different feel to them. And your setup is random as far as how that race develops. You may be industrial, but I don't know, inventive. I don't know, just to throw something out there. But you can have a different combination every game, so that makes the replayability amazing. So Scythe is my number 6. And yes.
It is. And I'm, she covered it just fine. I want to point out the thing that it brought to my life that is like a must-have for me now anytime I can get it. And that's the recessed player boards that were in this thing. I think that's the first time I saw them, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is brilliant.
You always remember your first time.
I know. What she was talking about there, though, you have your nation's power or whatever it is, and then you have a different industrial board, and you deal those out randomly at the beginning of the game. And it gives you a different path by which you upgrade your civilization and get your stars, which is what you've got to do to get your victory points. And I like that different puzzle each time. And I like that each faction has different powers, that asymmetrical thing. So every time you play, you're going to get something new. I usually, I don't know why this is, but I usually get the red guys that can do the same action twice in a row. And I think to myself every time I get it, yes, I got that one again, and I still lose. So I'm not good at it, but I enjoy playing it, and that's why it's my number 6.
Scythe is a game that I think really cemented Stegmaier as a great designer for me.
It's what put him in my list, that's for sure.
I mean, it's incredible. And I came to it thinking, oh, this is a war game. This is going to be cool. It's not. It's worker placement and kind of area control, right? Which is refreshing, But component wise, top quality. Huge map, just intricate miniatures and everything else. And a lot of expansions to go with it if you want to take it in that direction, and I think this latest one even offered some type of campaign play.
Yep.
So I'm really interested to try that. What a great game! Yeah. My number 6 is going to continue on the Eurogame path. This is Corleone, and we have the deluxe edition, which probably adds a little bit to it. It's the first. I think it's my first encounter with bag building, which I thought was really novel, and you're pulling little discs which represent different types of workers or people, peasantry or whatever, and assigning them to different jobs to trigger actions either on your tableau or on main boards. It's your standard Euro, right? I mean, it's like, when you talk in terms of that, but just the overall aesthetic of the game, the gameplay really flows nicely for me. And there is an expansion for trade and intrigue. I'm not really concerned with the intrigue part, but the trade part I've heard really adds to the game.
Don't worry about the intrigue part. I threw
you already threw
garbage.
Yeah, very nice. Yep. But I do want to try the trade part. But just all in all, and I mean, you get the deluxe edition, right? So it's got the metal coins and everything's it's all nice. And so I just enjoy it. Corleone.
This is not one of my favorite games, and I'll tell you why.
It's because I whooped you at it.
No, the reason
no, that's probably not it.
Not it. The reason is that I really enjoy games that have multiple paths to victory, and I'm not forced to do this certain path in order to be, competitive in the game. And we played it multiple times, and every time, and I deliberately ignored the whole townhouses thing and going down the trails. I ignored that, ignored the trading houses. I wanted to see if I could be competitive doing the other stuff. And I wasn't. I was shut down early on and could not get any further because you had to do that in order to win. And I don't like that in games. I don't like being forced down a path.
I still contend there are paths to victories beyond that. But
I don't know. I couldn't find it.
All right, Internet, educate us.
I think trade added the path back in.
I hope so.
It's quite possible.
Because I do agree with her. If you don't do trading houses, you will lose.
Yeah.
But I think
trading houses is a very visible strategy to gain a lot of points. I will agree there. But I still think there may be something hidden where you can kind of sneak in the back door and not have to do trading houses.
Could not find the back door.
So, Internet, if you know that, let us know what it is.
Those are our number 6s.
Here we are at number 5. It is my favorite dungeon crawl game. Who wants to take a guess?
It's got to be that Western one, right?
No, we've already talked about that. Shadows of Brimstone. This is going to be Star Wars Imperial Assault.
Oh,
okay.
I mean, you know, I'm a Star Wars junkie.
I agree that's a better game.
And
for sure.
And Imperial Assault is just awesome.
It is,
You've got one player playing the Imperials versus a team of rebels trying to do their thing, right? But I am really, really I like dungeon crawls because I think I'm a sucker for the campaign anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Imperial Assault constructs that campaign from the get-go, I just love it because it's not the one Imperial player doing everything, right? They're going to do some stuff, but Imperial Assault allows the rebel players to actually choose some side quests that they're going to include in this campaign's, event deck, essentially. And so you feel like you're kind of contributing to the development of the campaign, right?
Yes, sir.
And then as that plays out, you have a main storyline that's going to emerge itself, but then these side quests come up, and you have to make the decision, okay, well, do we go after Luke Skywalker to gain him as an ally? But at the same time, if we use him, we give so many points to the Imperial player to bring opposition to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that back and forth with, the choices that you have to make. All along, you're trying to get through that main story path, and it works so well. The components are top quality. It's a fantasy flight game, so the components are good. The gameplay is good. It's streamlined. It's quick and easy to pick up. And so this is definitely my favorite dungeon crawl. Is going to be Star Wars Imperial Assault.
Well, you really nailed it there because, being able to help craft the adventure, best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I agree. I'm going to go ahead and speed through mine because we talked about it on the last number quite a bit, and that's Orleans Deluxe Edition. I like the bag building thing. Maybe it's a gimmick, but it's a gimmick that really makes me happy when I play it. I like sticking my hand out there and seeing what I come out with. And I do think the trade expansion that we just got but hadn't had a chance to play yet is going to add something into that it really needed. So
because it adds goals, right?
Well, when you go to a city, if you have the goods that city's looking for, you can turn them in and get points, right? So it kind of makes what resources you've collected and moving around that map matter other than the trading houses. So
cool.
I think it's going to be really cool. Number 5, Orleans.
Well, for my number 5, this is kind of broad, but it's Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
Just the full-blown tabletop, put your armies down and go to war. I really enjoyed that. We did a campaign play this year, or in 2018, and it was just fantastic the whole way around. Everyone was getting involved. Everyone had their army. They had them painted. They were battling it out, and that was just good-hearted chuck and dice fun. And there's just you get that feeling, when you're throwing 27 dice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just an awesome game. Yes, you have, when you get into that big spread of a game, there is a commitment, both with time and financially, but it was well worth it for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's my number 5, Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
I'm glad you put this on your list. I'm going to consider you a trendsetter. For the last I guess this is our third time we've done this. 3 years.
Yep.
I have waffled and have not included this game for consideration for some crazy reason. Because in my mind, it just didn't fit on a list like this. But I think I'm going to end that because it deserves to be talked about. Good choice.
I like, the many years we've played Warhammer, Games Workshop games in general. Warhammer had some bloat that built up. And really, between now and then, I think, what was it, 4th edition, 5th edition maybe, is when we kind of stopped playing it. It had really gotten convoluted, you know. But I worried when they announced Age of Sigmar. I think they could have done the rollout better.
Sure. Yeah, the rollout was miserable.
I was very concerned when they just said, well, we're throwing points away and just, figure out with your opponent what you want to play. Because, frankly, I can trust you guys to say, okay, let's do something generally in the same ballpark. But if I'm going to go to a store and play with some other player, I'm going to say, well, I'm going to take, my Khorne blood brothers, and they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to take Nagash and,
I wonder
7 legions of this.
I wonder if they expected a kind of pre-game phase to pop up there, right? And I don't know that it did everywhere. It did in some places. Some people really had positive experiences with that.
But they fixed that relatively quickly. And then my other concern with it was the abandoning the rank and file. But I was actually kind of intrigued by that because, frankly, that was the part of Warhammer that had gotten too convoluted for me. Having to keep them rank and file and move them, and the rules for
the tilting,
pivoting and all of this kind of stuff, it just wasn't working anymore. What they did with Age of Sigmar is they didn't bring it down to a skirmish game. It's still a large, capacity war game.
Units.
But it just makes it easier when you don't have to keep them right by each other. You can, you just keep them within an inch, move them around terrain, through terrain, things like that. But they really sped up the gameplay. The combat, right? Combat is way more deadly than it was.
Simpler.
There's no more, okay, I'm going to break you and you're going to run, 8 inches. Oh, I didn't catch you. Or we're just going to kill some more guys,
Yep. So
I can really appreciate all that. It's like you said, it's a commitment. So, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. But, when you have to paint, 200 miniatures as opposed to 5 or 6, I'll take the 5 or 6. I'm a very slow painter. But I will say that when we decided to play Age of Sigmar as our little campaign group, it really motivated me to lower my standards of painting for myself to get them to a tabletop quality, and I was surprised that I actually...
And they were still quite good.
I was surprised.
Don't let him...
No, I'll agree. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm a good painter. But I'm so critical when I paint that I paint very slowly. Right?
You're very detailed.
Yeah. And so I told myself, okay, Chip, you have 100 miniatures you have to paint. It's not going to happen. You have to say, if it looks good at arm's length, I'm good with it. And I was so surprised. I was very proud of myself. I got the whole thing painted by the time we were bringing it to the board. So
yeah.
I played with no unpainted miniatures through the entire campaign. So.
This month. All right.
And that's our number 5. Back with number 4, and mine rose 2 spots from last year, so I think it's safe to say this one's stable in the top 5, and that's going to be Ignacy Trzewiczek's Robinson Crusoe. Yeah. Man, this game is hard, and it will kick you when you're down, but it does it in such a fulfilling way. I always come back to his company motto, board games that tell stories, and this is another one that does it, truth in marketing. That's what that statement is. Because, you come across a bird's nest and you're starving to death, so you take one egg and you eat it. And then you put that card back in the deck, and eventually Mama's going to come for revenge. These kind of things are all the way through it, including all the different thematic scenarios that you can do that come in the box. There's so much to play in here. And you're probably going to play the first one a number of times before you finally beat it, because he takes sadistic joy in wishing people, good luck, all right? With that wink, like you don't have a chance. So it is incredibly difficult, but it does it in a fulfilling way, not in a way that just makes you go, man, this is no fun. Every step of the way you're having fun. You're exploring, you're accomplishing goals, you're building tools that you would need to survive, because it really stresses that survival aspect of the game. And everything works together really well, and I thoroughly enjoy my number 4, Robinson Crusoe.
And I know you really, really like this game because he went traveling to Arizona, and our gaming group pulled it out while he was gone.
There were angry text messages.
Yeah, man.
In my own home. Yeah.
Right. It's such a good game, and I'm so pumped about the expansion coming out.
Yeah.
Mystery Tales, which is and that's really what the game needed, right? It doesn't need anything. It's a great game just right out of the box. Mm-hmm. But I want to say my copy of it has 8 different adventures, I think.
Yeah, you have the reprint. I have the original version.
And, it's great every time you play it. And there is replayability in the you could play the same adventure and still have replayability, because your initial tool set and stuff is going to be different. The layout of the map terrain is going to be different. So it's not like, once you've done one adventure, you know it and it's going to be the same. But, after you play the adventures a few times, you kind of just want something new and fresh. Right. And so as what I understand, the expansion Mystery Tales that's coming out is going to be pretty much just that. It's going to be new stories, new adventures to
that's
go
great.
through. So I'm super pumped about it.
Well, for my number 4, it's new to the list, and it's High. And this is one that we actually, a game that I didn't know that much about, but he got it on Kickstarter. And we finally got it to the table and played it, and it blew my mind. And that's Rise of Tribes. I really love this game. It's just a really neat variation of using dice, roll those dice, but if you choose this particular action, you have to remove that dice, and everything changes every time it cycles. So every time one person does something, it cycles, and so the gameplay changes every time the person goes. And that's really cool, because you have to be focused and you got to keep your eyes on the board, and you're trying to build up your tribe over this area. And I just love the fact that it was so engaging, and it did it with dice. Super cool Rise of Tribes.
I'm surprised, because it has a fair amount of player interaction, like combat, you can't eliminate somebody, but it's a great game.
But it's so clean, right? I think
it's very clean.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I enjoyed playing it too. So my number 4 is a crossover that we've already talked about, Eclipse, which will be my favorite sci-fi 4X game. So we can just roll the credits with that. And coming in, my number 3 is crossover with Lucas with Robinson Crusoe, Adventures of Cursed Island. I've said all that I can say about it. I love this game. Ignacy, you are a genius. And it has hex map.
There you go. Yes, it does.
I guess since we did that way, I'll go ahead with my number 3. 2 years ago, this was my number 1 game. Last year, it fell to number 3, and it stayed there this year. And that is Eldritch Horror. We've said before, and it's funny because we've been recently watching through the old Indiana Jones movies with our youngest son.
He needed to see him.
Yeah, he did. This game makes me feel like Indiana Jones, up into and including the red line going across the map, as you're traveling around. I've seen the new Arkham, and I don't really like some of the things that it does, but I loved the old Arkham Horror, and I felt like Eldritch cleaned that up and made it a smoother experience on a larger scale that I really enjoyed. Yeah. So, They recently put out the Masks of Nyarlathotep expansion, which adds a campaign mode to it. So, I know it's a longer game, but I'm kind of excited to see what a campaign in that game
What does that mean?
Yeah. I know it's one of these things that, some of the games behind us I really enjoy, but somebody will suggest them and my brain says, man, we're going to be here all night, and it never thinks that with Eldritch Horror. So that's why it ranks so highly for me.
The Eldritch Horror campaign works like this. Did you like going insane? You're going to do it 9 times. Yeah. Eldritch is such a cool game. It does. It takes Arkham and expands it onto a global level, right? Because Arkham is just down in that in H.P. Lovecraft verse of that area. And I enjoy it. I agree with you. It is, to me, it's Indiana Jones on the board. Really, really cool.
Well, for my number 3, this is one of those games that was on my most anticipated a couple years back. There was just something about it that drew me to it, and I bet you it was the dinosaurs, because it's Escape from 100 Million B.C. This game is awesome. Okay, so what you're doing is you crash landed in the past.
In the volcano.
Inside of a volcano, the top of a volcano. You plugged it up. You're plugging it, right. Good Lord. Okay, so then when you crashed, all your ship pieces went out everywhere. So you have to, in order to get back to your own time, you're going to have to go and find all the parts to your ship. While you're doing that, you're exploring prehistoric Earth, and you're running into dinosaurs, and you're also, you can't leave behind things that came with you. Like, for instance, a book of matches, or a gun, or, a photograph, because that creates paradoxes within the timeline. Now, when you got ripped back, you also ripped back famous people. So, be it Amelia Earhart or John F. Kennedy. So, you got to get them back out with you. And during all this time, the paradoxes are growing. So even if you win, even if you get all the gears and stuff that you need and get back to the volcano and get your ship fixed and you go back to the future, if you left a lot of stuff behind, you could totally lose anyway because you've messed up the timeline so bad. This was really cool. And I don't know, it's almost like it's a time stories that I wanted to play because, you got to see an end result. When the game was over, win or lose, you changed history, and this was the end result. Love this game. Escape from 100 Million B.C.
It's definitely better than Time Stories, I'll say that. It's an absurd game to me.
It is not.
Because, a matchbook wouldn't biodegrade in 100 million years. So there's no paradox to leaving.
There's paradoxes.
But I can get it. You can't leave Abraham Lincoln behind. It's fine. It's a fun game. I'll play it. It's just, it's silly. So
it's not.
I think my one criticism of it is, like you said, the end sequence. I don't particularly care for punishing me for the negative points after, we got back to our ship, we repaired it, and we unplugged the volcano before it blew us to smithereens, and we had 5 points left over. Yay! Oh no, you have negative 15 because you left a laser gun in the swamp because you couldn't get to it because there was a giant T-Rex in your way that would have cost you more points if it killed you. So
I think it just wraps up the story, right?
Yeah, it does. It's fine. And y'all enjoy it, so, I'll enjoy having the shared experience. Those are our number 3s. Down to the favorite 2. And the champion has been displaced. Last year's number 1, Great Western Trail, has now become number 2.
That being said, I officially have no idea what could possibly be number 1.
Well,
we'll find out.
What a great game of cowboying and train engineering and working the cattle up to Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah. Just everything about this. There's so much to this game, right? So you're moving along the trail. There's locations you can build buildings to later on give you bonuses as you come. You're going to follow this trail a number of times as you're taking, loads or herds of cattle to the train yard. And so you're trying to build for those future endeavors, and then try to manage the cattle you get, manage your staff of either cowboys, engineers, or what's the other? Builders to make the buildings easier. Lots of ways for strategy, lots of paths to victory, a lot to explore in this game. And I like the timer is essentially your potential workforce, right? So as new workers are coming out, those are counting the game down as you go. It's a really great board game, and just so much to do.
I like the fact that you kind of progress at your own pace. If you want to go slower so you can better manage and do your set collection for that perfect herd of cattle, you don't have to race up the board. You can take your time and meander and get the way you want it to be, or you can race through those buildings to get to Kansas City and get your cows going. There's so many different strategies within this. I love the multiple paths to victory. That's a big thing for me. Good game.
I agree. My number 2 was new to the list last year and debuted at number 2. And everybody knows how much I love worker placement. And for me, this is the finest example of a worker placement game there is. Viticulture Essential Edition. I never played the original Viticulture, which as I understand it was a little bit lackluster, but the Essential Edition added some of the elements from the Tuscany expansion into the base box, and then there's also a Tuscany Essential, which I have, but we haven't played yet. I really enjoy this. There's another wine-making Euro game that we have called Vino. So I like that one, too, and it focuses on kind of your global business. You're a mogul, right, if you will. And then this one, the reason I like this one better is it focuses more narrowly on me running my vineyard. And that thematic feeling starts from the moment you begin, because you start off with what they call Mama's and Papa's cards. And basically, these are your starting resources, but it represents the meager vineyard that you've inherited from previous generations, and you build from there. You plant vines to grow grapes, turn them into wine, and they age. Everything that you would envision happening thematically in a wine-making Euro game, and it does it so cleanly, right? We talked about how Scythe put Stonemaier Games and Jamie Stegmaier on our radars, and I'm glad it did because it led me to this game, and I absolutely love Viticulture Essential Edition.
And what's really cool, too, is that the game progresses in seasons. So you have to be, it's one of those things where it's a timing thing. Another mechanic I like, because if you use all your workers in the spring, you're not going to have any fall and winter actions. So that's what's really cool is the timing and managing not only, resources or whatever, it's the workforce.
You have to prepare for those upcoming seasons.
Absolutely.
It's a really great game. I wish there was a boxed wine edition. Mogan David edition.
Well, for my number 2, this one was new to the list, and it is another game that I discovered on Kickstarter and had to have. Again, it has the Greek mythology, which I love, and it is Mythic Battles Pantheon.
Fantastic.
Super cool game, great miniatures. Basically, you're a god. The Titans have destroyed Olympus, and so you are without power. So you are choosing a god and followers to go out and basically gain gems, which are giving you your power back. So that you can ascend back to Olympus. It's a skirmish-based game. It's on a board, and there's tons of expansions. Poseidon, Hera, and the miniatures are awesome. And you get to pick your own set of heroes. Be it, I can mix anything together. I could mix Zeus with Hercules and Medusa and the Sphinx. There's all these different characters that, you have a set number of points to build your warband, and then you go at it trying to be the first ones to grab these pieces of power. Awesome game. Love it, love it, love it. Mythic Pantheon. Mythic Battles.
We've talked about it before. This will be a crossover with me from I think the last one, maybe the time before. No, it's in my 20s to 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's such a cool game, man. I mean, I like that drafting, the pregame, drafting your army together, because that's when you get to really look and find the combinations of powers that sort of complement each other and what do they call it? Synergize together.
Synergize together.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really cool, and the gameplay is good too. I haven't had a lot of experience with these games where the board is not like a set symmetrical region, right? So if we think in terms of like a hex map or a battle map with squares, in Mythic Battles you have some kind of polyhedron shape that represents the forest, and then there's a road, so it has 3 segments down the road. And they're all different sizes, which I haven't had a lot of experience with that. And at first you look at it and you're like, okay, that's kind of strange. But then it's pretty easy. You could move between adjacent spaces, so as long as they're next to each other,
as line of sight and area,
and then it deals with line of sight and stuff. Yeah, really neat though. Got plenty of variety in the set that you made Lucas buy. So we appreciate that.
You're welcome. And those are our number 2s.
The time has come for us to find out what's number 1, and mine is no surprise. It was number 1 last year, and it repeats as champion, Great Western Trail. For all the reasons Chip talked about, I like all of the elements this game incorporates when they're a game by themselves. So putting them together just works for me. I enjoy deck building. It's got an aspect of that with the cows. I enjoy the point-to-point movement. It's kind of the route you're running of your cattle from I believe it's Texas all the way to Kansas City is basically a big rondelle, with some forking options along the way. I enjoy that. You can go perhaps an easier, quicker way, or you can take a more hazardous path that could be very lucrative for you. And then there's this whole bit with building up buildings and your train engineers so that you can ship your cattle further. I enjoy everything about this one. That's why it comes in at number 1, and they just added an expansion that I can't wait for us to get to the table. So, number 1, Great Western Trail.
This game is one of the few games that I think about when I'm not playing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Especially like right after we play it, I'll go home that night, and that's all I can think about is, I should have done this differently, or next time I'm going to try that. Because as you take your cattle to the train station, the very first couple 3 stops are actually negative points at the end of the game. There's some kind of negative aspect to having those. And I remember the first time we played it, I'm going home and I'm going, there has to be a way to get that first run to avoid those, right? And so I'm like mathing it out, and I'm like, okay, if I take these cattle and then I take these certificates so that I can upgrade or switch out these cattle and I stop at these buildings, I think by the time I get to is it Kansas City where you ship them?
Kansas City, where's your start?
Yeah, to Kansas City, then I can immediately hit the 6-point station and not get any negative points. Just so excited about it. So really cool game.
Well, for my number 1, we talked earlier about synergy, and this one has loads of it and a lot of brain burning thinky bits. And that's Terraforming Mars.
Oh, yeah.
It's still number 1. It was number 1 for me last year too. There's just something about this game to where you're building up your cards and you're building up your engine to terraform Mars and to get your money up, to get your efficiencies up to. We haven't even played with a corporation yet. This is just flat out, starting from scratch. You have no special powers. And there's just something about that game that just grabs a hold of me and it's just churning. The engine in my mind it's just churning. I love this game. It's so engaging and fun. Terraforming Mars.
I think that's a 3-way split for us also, because I know it was on my list.
Yes, it was.
Yep. Well, here it is. My number 1. You want? I'm going to shade the thing.
Yeah, don't tell us.
Any kind of guess
I really don't know what it could be at this point.
Is it new to the list?
It's not new to my list, but it has graduated. This game we're talking about this list is our favorite games. Mm-hmm. This game and the way that I compiled the list this year was using the sorting engine. Mm-hmm. So when you put two games in front of me, Chip, would you rather play this game or this game? This one came to the top, and it is 5 tribes.
Wow!
Oh, yeah, I should have done that because the way we started
this game, man, it just the Moncala aspect. The tiled board that's going to be different every time. The inclusion of the gens that give you some kind of like little side powers and things. Man, this game is great. It is to me it's abstract in the extreme, right? It's
the theme works.
The theme does work. It does.
It blends well.
But the mechanic itself is all abstract, and I just love it. It's like chess on steroids for me. We finally got to the table at BGG-Con a couple years back, and it captured me, man. It's such a super cool game.
And you've always liked that Moncala.
Oh yeah.
Mechanic. You've always enjoyed games that had that. Good game.
Well, there it is. The secret is out, and that concludes our 50 favorite games 2019 edition. Post down in the comments what your favorite games are for Roll to Hit Gaming. I'm Lucas.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Chip. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Roll to Hit Game.